Today, I'm really excited to share with you a very unique component of leadership, something that I see a lot of my C suite executives who are non native speakers not realize just how crucial this is, just how important this is to this level of your career. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tanya Suarez, and as a communication coach, I specialize in helping professionals who are non native speakers communicate effectively and lead confidently. And speaking of leadership, make sure to download my free audio training, The Three Essentials of American Leadership Communication. Now, what we're going to work on today is near and dear to my heart. It is so important that it's actually a third of my leadership program, and that's connection. And what that really means is social skills. Now, this is something that you might be really good at in your native language, or you might not. A lot of you will have climbed the corporate ladder. You're in these executive positions because of your technical knowledge. A lot of companies don't offer leadership communication training, and this is something that you have to seek out on your own. By the way, I can be your leadership communication coach. So, what's really important about this from a non native speaker perspective is you're different than your native speaker colleagues. You have other things playing in your mind. Not only are you brilliant at your job, but you're also a lot of times still second guessing how you're expressing yourself because of the language issue. And so, what that does is we're going to talk about three specific instances that you can work on today to give you faster results and help you connect more authentically and more effective. So yeah, connection is basically social skills. Now, again, I like to offer you different perspectives. If you are responding with whatever, I'm leadership is leadership and I just need to make sure everything gets done, or you're in the camp of like, oh, yes, I really want to be more social, I want to connect more, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it well. I'm not sure how to do it in English. So both of those, we're coming at it from different points, but we're going to the same destination. And that's really understanding the value to be able to connect. It's not just social in terms of superficial small talk, although that is important, but it's about creating trust. It's about creating connections. And when you do that in smaller moments, and that's going to facilitate the more challenging moments, the more important moments. Because if you can make a connection with someone on a conversational, on a casual level, when you have to present to them, you'll feel more comfortable. When you have to pitch them, when you have to persuade them, they'll be more receptive. So you're earning trust and you're making those connections to increase your impact. Now, the first thing has nothing to do with your English. So this is the first thing that I want you to focus on because you'll get the fastest results and you don't have to worry about building your language levels just yet. So body language for non-native speakers, you probably don't realize how you're being perceived. And this comes from years, if not decades, of having to worry about or having to also focus on what you're saying. Not just the concept, but the actual word choice and the verbs and the pronunciation. So what you might not realize is what your body's doing. So what I recommend for this, and I have my clients record themselves and send it to me, but you can also do this if you can't do it at work for legal purposes, do it at home. Or if you have someone that you live with, have them record you. I have my wife do this for me, even at this level. I'll often tell her, okay, like record me candidly without me knowing and then show it to me. Because what I do is I see what is my body language when I'm not focusing on it. Because of course, if you're on stage right now, I'm on camera, it's a little bit easier to be mindful, but I want you to realize what your body language is saying when you're not thinking about it. And so the first thing you want to do is relax your shoulders, roll them back. Now, what I meant about the unique situation about non-native speakers is when you're thinking about English, you don't realize that your face is also tensing. Your shoulders are also kind of rolling in a little bit. So even though you're just thinking like, what was the conjugation? What preposition do I use here? Other people are that's being read as this person's serious, this person's having a bad day, this person's always in a bad mood. So it might affect your approachability. It might make you look serious in moments where you don't need to be. And so there's going to be less connection because they're going to misread your personality. So what I want you to do is if you're in a virtual meeting, you can record those meetings. Usually that's okay. And you want to see, are you like this? Are you Doing this? Are you doing this? I get that it's exhausting to be in back to back meetings all day long, but how you appear as a C suite executive is really important. You set the tone, you lead by example. So if you're looking like this, or if you're just like, and again, you might not be doing it because you're bored. You might be doing it because you're trying to think, what expression did they just use? Is that an idiom? So you're trying to figure out the language, but it's being read as disinterested, disengaged. And if you're the leader in the meeting, that's going to create an environment that doesn't feel safe or conducive to asking questions and participating. And I did this myself. I've been online and teaching in a public forum for years. So I really I get to see myself and analyze myself all day, every day. And what I noticed is it's really hard to stay in this upright position. So I have a pillow. I put it not all the way down, but like a little bit higher. I feel like that gives me the push that I need. So even when I'm not thinking about it, my posture is reflecting active, engaged listening. And just that goes a long way. And I know it's hard and I know it's tempting to lean back or to lean forward, but you've got to create a physical environment where you can't. And by holding that up, it really sets the tone and it inspires others to also like, hey, if the CEO looks like that, then I need to also step up my game. So this is a really good way to look confident. So this goes to your executive presence. This also helps you in the casual setting, the water cooler talk, when you're walking around with colleagues, when you're meeting people at conferences. If you're like this, and again, like maybe you're just self-conscious or you're trying to hear, there's a lot of noise and you're trying to pick up on the expressions that they're using, but that body language is going to read as, again, either disinterested, closed off physically, and you're not going to be able to connect even on a casual level. So body language is really great. So I want you to figure out, how can you observe your candid body language? So you can record your meetings. You can, if your meetings are recorded, like the in-person ones, you can ask to see that. You can ask permission for you to record it yourself. You can get a partner, a friend, a spouse to record yourself and just say, like, when I'm walking around, don't tell me, but like record me for like a minute and then send it to me. And you can see what you actually look like, because maybe your posture has suffered because of all of the English and you don't even realize you're doing it when you're not speaking. So this really helps people know that they can approach you. It helps you be a little more in control of the energy of a conversation, regardless of the language. Now, something else I want you to consider to enhance your social skills, your connection skills in the leadership position, is curiosity. This is really powerful, because what I'm asking you to do is to stop focusing on yourself. And you have had years, if not decades, of always being self-critical, self-analytical, because most of my clients, even at the fluency level, you're still correcting yourself. You're still thinking, was that the best word choice? What word am I thinking of? Did I use the right grammar structure? So you're constantly in this inward perspective mindset. And you just can't. You can't do that anymore. Once you're at these high level positions, you have to focus on the bigger picture. And that means getting out of yourself. Yes, you can keep working on your English. You can keep focusing on it, but you need to compartmentalize. You need to create moments and physical spaces where that's going to be your focus. And then when you're at work, when you're doing your thing, no more self-analysis. Trust that if you make a mistake, you can bounce back, you can work through it. I was just telling someone the other day, I always think of fluency like dancing. When you're dancing, if you trip, if you miss a step, you don't stop dancing. You don't just say it like, "Oh, what was that step?" and the song continues. No, no, no. You gracefully move on. And it's the same conversationally. So you're going to have to really lean into that. And it takes training, because again, you've been doing this for a long time. So to get out of self-critical mode and into curiosity mode. Curiosity is a really powerful word, especially for you as a non-native speaker, because what it does is it inspires action. Everything that I do, it's not just theoretical, it's actionable. So when I tell you lean into curiosity, what that actually does is it increases active listening, because when you're curious, you want to know. When you want to know, you need to listen. As a leader, you should be listening more than speaking anyway. So, from an English perspective, better ratio. So, you really, and when you're listening, then that's where techniques come in. In order to actively listen, you've got to breathe. So, curiosity leads, it's like a domino effect, leads to active listening. Active listening reminds you to work on your breath. You have to breathe. The one thing I want you to do today and this week is observe, don't judge. Remember, we're getting out of being self critical and you're just going to observe your breath. I guarantee you're holding your breath a lot more than you think. And what that does is it increases your heart rate, it increases anxiety. From a cognitive perspective, it really impedes creativity. And so then that's when you start freaking out and you start planning, like, what am I going to say next? What are they saying? How am I going to respond? You're going to be curious. You're going to really listen. Trust that when it's your turn to speak, you'll be able to respond. And remember, American English, the responses, we breathe, we repeat what the other person said, and we answer very concisely using simple sentence structure. So you're going to be okay. So curiosity means active listening, means breathing. Now, the other thing that curiosity will inspire for you is asking more questions. Because what happens is, as a non-native speaker who's a leader, I find that you're often stuck in the proving yourself mode. You're trying to prove yourself. Usually, at least the clients that I've worked with, they're very confident about their professional skills. So it's not an insecurity or an imposter syndrome with their talent or the skill that they need to be in that position. It's more of an insecurity with, do people know that my English is good enough? Am I speaking English as well as my native speaker colleagues? And what that leads to is overcompensation. So you're not listening actively because you're just trying to pick up just enough of what you need and you start planning your response and you want to try to be as eloquent as possible. So when you're curious and you're leaning more into asking questions, that also simplifies and takes a little bit of pressure off. You're not trying to prove yourself by participating and adding something super, gorgeous and eloquent and formal. You're listening and you're asking follow-up questions. And they can be very simple. This is not, again, you're not trying to prove yourself. Ask simple questions that show that you're listening and that you're interested. And when you're someone who's interested, you also become someone who's interesting. And from a leadership perspective, to have a leader who's truly engaged, who truly listens, is very powerful. Whether it's to your team members or to your peers or to the executive board, it really adds that executive presence of confidence and someone that you trust. Because at the end of the day, if your purpose is to make friends in life, that's great. But the tips that we have here are also about your reputation as a leader. And so when you become a trusted partner, it's really empowering. And this is also great with clients. So whether it's internal or external, when you're in a meeting, when you are pitching a presentation or when you're being pitched to, being curious, asking simple but insightful questions will also help you get the information that you need from your clients to be able to deliver better service or better partnership. And last but not least, positivity. This is something that can, trying to think of how to say it diplomatically. So culturally speaking, you may or may not have known, you've noticed because like everybody tells me, Americans are borderline obnoxiously positive. Everything is great. Everything is awesome. How's your day? Good. How was your vacation? Great. It's just our knee-jerk reaction. It's not that it's disingenuous. It's just our conversational norm. And it's also really difficult. I've worked with clients who in the startup field where they're pitching to American VCs, and it's really challenging because the feedback is always like, amazing, awesome, great. And then they don't get the funding and they're like, what did we do wrong? They were so encouraging. And I have to warn them, you're going to get that feedback, but there are strategies to push through that to try to get more genuine feedback. But anyway, I digress. So being positive is part of the social skills that you need as a leader with American English communication. And what I really mean by this, it's the complaining. I want you to be careful not to complain and or be too direct. So I find I'm immediately thinking of Latin America, which tends to be very open And in that openness to an American, that can come across as complaining. I'm also thinking about some of my Europeans who are really direct. To an American, that can come across as very rude or negative. So it's not that I don't want you to be yourself. I just want to make sure that you are perceived for who you are. And I know that from those cultural backgrounds, it's not that those people, it's not that you are inherently negative or rude, not at all. It's just that you have to be mindful of what's appropriate in your native language and your native culture isn't translating in the way that you intend. When I work with people from cultures that are very open, there is that frustration of, I f- like, am I lying? I feel like I can't be myself. This is just what I talk about. And I get that frustration. But you want to remember that it's not always about you, that conversations and connection are about two people or two groups. So if the other half of the equation is not responding to you in the way that your intention, if they're not seeing it as like, wow, this person is really open, honest, and vulnerable, if they're perceiving that as this person is oversharing and complains too much, then that's not your intention. Or on the other hand, if you're thinking like, no, I'm honest and I'm going to say it how it is, that bluntness, you're in your mind, your intention is, I'm honest. The way it's being received is this person is rude, this person is crossing the line. So again, your intention is what matters. The execution is what needs to be adaptable. So when you see this, if positivity is a trigger word, which it might be, if that makes you feel like, no, I'm not going to be happy all the time, that's fine. Pick the word that gives you the result that we're talking about here. So you want to be careful of complaining, being so open that it's complaining, also being too open. Like with corporate culture, you don't want to be super vulnerable and say too much about your personal life. And even when it comes to professional stuff, you don't want to talk about other people in your company. You don't want to divulge things that are supposed to be a little bit more private because you have an expectation of trust that they might go and tell people that you didn't want them to. So this is also to protect yourself, to protect the company, and most importantly, to make connections in a genuine way that will move the needle. Whether that's getting closer to someone so that you have a stronger personal connection with them, or getting closer to someone so that you have a stronger professional relationship for collaboration purposes, closing the deal. This is really important to be mindful of. So if you have someone that, like if you're working with me, like I do the analysis and I'll tell you, like, this is where you're coming across too aggressive. This is where we want to modify. If you don't have a coach, if you don't have any professional development available, ask someone that you trust. I would caution you on being strategic on who you ask at work. I would say not someone under you, because that's going to put them in an uncomfortable position where they might feel like, if I tell them, am I going to hurt my chances of promotion or whatnot? So I would ask a mentor that you have or someone that's above you. If you have the opportunity, I would ask a native speaker and a non-native speaker, get the feedback and say, hey, I'm really, and this is also your opportunity to showcase that you're constantly evolving. You can let them know, I'm really working on my leadership communication skills. And I know, being from Brazil, I tend to want to be really open and talk about anything, but I want to make sure that I'm keeping it professional and that I'm doing it in a way that's appropriate and positive. Can you give me some feedback? How do you feel I can improve my community? Don't ask, am I good? Because that's a yes, no. And really you want to have more feedback. So frame the question is, how do you recommend? Do you have any advice on how I can improve that? And that'll give you more genuine feedback. Because and this is really important, I'll do another lesson on this one, how you ask a question is really important to get the information that you need. Being your best self at work, elevating your executive presence really includes connection and social skills. Do not forget about that component. A lot of times people focus on how to lead a meeting, how to do all these other technical things. Small talk, social skills, understanding American norms is very, very important. This is how deals are made. This is how promotions are earned. This is how impact and influence from a leadership perspective, that's how you grow that. And I really want that for you. If you're interested in a one-on-one coaching program, I invite you to apply to my leadership communication program. It's wonderful for that development that you need to make sure that you're performing at the most optimized version of yourself. And as always, make sure you download the free audio training, 3 Essentials of American Leadership Communication. Thank you so much for joining me, and make sure to let me know in the comments where you're from. Let me know a little bit about what part of your work experience or your professional English I can help you with. And remember, your English is good enough. At this level, your English is good enough. What we're doing now is we're elevating your communication, and that requires different perspective, different mindset, and different training. But I'm here for you. See you next time.